Hey everyone, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and in today's video I'm going to talk about the new VZR Model One MKII, which is the iterative improvement, slight tweaked version of the older one, which is now going to be called the Mark I as far as I'm concerned. It's a spiritual successor. If you want a too long didn't watch, basically this has a little bit less bass, a little bit more mid-range and treble tuning improvements, so it just sounds more detailed, and I think it's better tuned overall. The big improvements also come from the microphone and the cable, because this is easy to drive and the microphone is more sensitive. So if you're connecting this to an Xbox controller or you never had the strongest microphone preamp, well, the new Model One Mark II to me is just a more easy plug and play version of the Mark I. If you had the original and you're happy with it, unless you needed a more sensitive mic or don't want to deal with any kind of EQ, this is not a big enough change to warrant switching it. If you're new to the analog space and you want some bass cannons that are comfortable and have their own unique philosophy on tuning, well, keep watching the video. Before I get any further, I do want to apologize for not having as much content as I usually do. I did a community post, I think about 10 days ago, and I'm going to do my best to get through this as smoothly as possible. I was in a pretty big car accident almost 2 weeks ago, and I haven't filmed anything since. I haven't been in the mood. I've been in pain and just been exhausted and frankly cranky and kind of antisocial. It's my first car accident. My car was totaled. Thankfully, it's not at fault, and it's always good to have a dash cam. Please have a dash cam if you're a safe driver, because it will protect you. Anyway, I'm recovering. I will keep ramping up coverage as I can, but I didn't want to go like a full month with no videos. So for those who left kind words in the comments, sorry for not responding to everything. I really appreciate the support, and I'm going to do my best to live up to the hype that is the Mark II. But I also want to point out the irony of getting an Everything Hurts shirt right before the accident. So it's very fitting for this situation. Anyway, let's get into the Mark II. So the case should look familiar. It's basically the same case that came with the Mark I if you're familiar with VZR audio. If you're not, well, this is the case that comes with it, and it's a really, really nice case. I mean, it's like that soft, like nylon scratchy material. So it's not a hard case, but this does have reinforcements, so it will protect the headphone physically. This is a little card that talks about a new feature we'll get into soon. As far as accessories go, you have a Y adapter or breakout cable. What this does is it takes the TRRS plug, which is down here. I'm going to grab the other side and plug this in, and that allows you to break up the microphone connection separately from the headphone connection. So if you have a DAC that separates the two, you can easily do that. Otherwise, just use the TRRS connection to plug into a combo jack. Maybe you have a laptop that has it built in, a PC or console controller that has a headphone jack, just plug it into that. This also comes with a TRRS extension cable, which is cool. So if the included one isn't long enough, and it's quite long, I can't imagine really needing to use the extension too much, but it is a combo jack extension. So naturally, if you needed a longer cable to reach the back of your computer, if you're using the integrated one, I guess this is where that cable can come in handy. I do strongly recommend buying an upgraded DAC amp that's designed for headsets, because if you're spending almost $400, this is $360, I would suggest getting a DAC to utilize that, and there's a big variety of good DACs out there. The Fosse Audio K7 is amazing, the Creative G8, and even the GC7 from Creative. It's not as nice as the newer stuff, but the controls on that are really good, and it works well enough. And because this has a more sensitive mic, you can pretty much get away with anything. Of course, you get the 1/4" adapter, which I didn't pull out because I have a ton of those. These are just little things that are shipped inside the pad, so they have a nice little pull string on it. Make sure you remove that before operating the headset. Before we look closer at the headset itself, I want to go over this cable real quick. This is a huge improvement for two reasons. One is this plus whatever they did to the microphone is so much easier to drive with controllers. On Xbox specifically, I had issues where the older one, the mic just didn't work well. A lot of people said I was too quiet, and it was kind of a turnoff with this controller for Xbox gaming if you didn't have a separate DAC. Just because, you know, if your friends can barely hear you and you're having to shout for them to do that, well, that was a downside. They made improvements to microphones that were more sensitive. They made it longer so you can get it closer to your mouth, but that introduced plosives. So this is still long and flexible, but the cable actually was custom made for this headset to have very specific inductive properties or resistive properties in the wire to further improve the microphone performance and sensitivity. It's also a round TPU cable, a normal rubber cable, very good on microphonics. The older cable looked nice, okay? This was great. There's no volume controls on any of this, by the way. You have to do volume control separately. They didn't want the volume adjustment wheel to be impacting channel balance or overall audio performance. This looked good, but it had a very strong memory effect. It did not like to twist, and when it did, it would do these wonderful little loops. And I can tell you from personal experience and what I've seen online from owners, they weren't as crazy about the cable's behavior physically, even though it was well made to an extent. I didn't have any real issues with it. It still came with that breakout cable as well, and it looked nice, but I much rather prefer the TPU cable on the new one. Now, the tweaks and modifications also happen on the headset itself, of course, at least physically. So I want to start with the pads. They look identical otherwise, I should say. So you have this white composite shell with a carbon fiber inlay, and then a spring steel headband, self-adjusting strap, which is great. And this whole thing is metal. There's a really nice screw on the inside that holds it together. These feel indestructible. I have never thought of anyone breaking these. I don't know if there's a report of someone ever breaking these before. Part of what you're paying for is definitely the build quality, because these are crazy robust. I've had this for years. It's never really been put away. It's always on my rack of headphones and headsets that I pick up from time to time to play. So these guys will be replacing that, and you'll soon know why. But this has gone through quite a bit, and it's still held up really well. Now, on the note of the pads, so the new one, the Mark II, ships with the hybrid pad out of the factory. If you follow my channel and you knew about this, the Model 1 came out with all leatherette. Then they released this hybrid pad. These are just fuzzies and lint, by the way. It had a leatherette outer, but a fabric, like a velour type cloth material on the inside. And these were more breathable. It did attenuate bass further. And the new ones, they look almost identical to this. The only difference that I've noticed just from my unit is there's more of an angle on my hybrid pad from the last video I made when they first released this. The new ones are a little bit thicker. They have almost the same exact dimensions depth-wise, but to me, there's just a little bit more depth. It could have been that I got like the original sample of the hybrid pads, and maybe it's just been refined further, and this is how they all are. But the Mark II has really nice pads. These are 30 millimeters deep, so there's plenty of depth here. The older one had a little bit over 50 millimeters of height and width, whereas basically this is almost the same, but it's like 1 millimeter shorter, at least on the width side. Now, there is one little change that is on the inside of this, and that's the Talisman system. And I hope I'm saying that right. There's like a little, you can see it's like scalloped or angled, if you will. It's not perfectly symmetrical, and there's a little notch. There's like a white line on the inside of the ring to help you align it. So basically you want to, if this is the front of the headset, when you flip this open, the white ring is supposed to be pointing towards the front, and then you put like this rubber side down. This is a physical acoustic tuning device designed to further improve the performance of the headset. So part of the frequency response changes you get are from that. Now, one of the negatives to this is it makes the hole a little bit smaller. So you can always experiment and see what you think. And as I pull this off, might as well get into that. I'm getting ahead of myself. You can always experiment with it in or out, but in is by design. It does do some improvements, and I think it has a more consistent mid-range and treble delivery. This little guy is the Crosswave system, and it's patented, or at least, let's see, is it patent issued? Patent pending. So this guy basically helps with shaping audio waves that are coming off the driver. It's designed to alter the timing of frequencies to interact with your entire ear to improve imaging performance and spatial audio performance at an analog level. Spatial audio is an incredibly complex system. It's not just simulating surround sound by adding reverbs. There's a lot of things that occur with phases and timing to simulate a more immersive soundscape. And the guys behind the Model 1 are very well versed in spatial audio, and they wanted to make an analog headset that kind of replicated the needs of what spatial audio needs to do on ear through physical properties and not just DSP. You can always do DSP for certain things later, but they wanted to give you the best physical starting point first for that. As far as comfort goes, there's a lot to love about the Model 1. The older one was always very comfortable, and this one's like a different kind of comfort. The older one with the leatherette pads felt a little bit more compliant initially, and especially once it broke in, it became very, very comfortable to wear. And this whole like zero gravity suspension design system. This isn't a light headset, by the way. It weighs over 400 grams, which is actually quite heavy in the headset space. But when you compare it to other more robust premium headphone models that have a much higher use of metal, this is kind of in the normal window of weight. However, it distributes this weight very well because this little notch in the center for relieving pressure, the adjustable self-adjusting strap, if you will, being a suspension strap, it just gets rid of a lot of the pressure points. And the clamp force is slightly different. So I mentioned this is a spring steel headband. Spring steel headbands have a certain tension out of the box, and it will vary from model to model by a little bit. I measured the clamp force, and the new Model 1 Mark II has a higher clamp out of the box than my original one did, which is broken in, and I've had it for a long time. If you want to reduce clamp force, because this is spring steel, you can grab this and basically just the bands, not this part. You're not grabbing it by the cups and ripping it apart. But if you put some pressure on these, you can stretch out the metal a little bit, and that'll reduce clamp force. It will soften up a little bit over time, but it's worth pointing out. The other thing I want to point out is these pads feel a little bit more stiff out of the box than this, but they are more breathable. So one of the issues with the Model 1 wasn't so much comfort physically, but the thermal buildup of having a leatherette pad, which has pros and cons. If you're chasing a lot of bass, it's great. If you want the most noise isolation you can get, a full seal is going to deliver that. This is a little bit more breathable, so you lose a little bit of the noise isolation with the new model, but I think the pros outweigh the cons between the sound quality and the long-term comfort for heat buildup. I did reduce the clamp force of this a little bit after I measured it, and even if you wear glasses, I use gunnar glasses sometimes to reduce blue light for reducing eye strain. Been very important for me recently. And this helps because this clamp force being a little softer, there is a lot of compliance in the first few millimeters of movement on a small indentation. So if you have glasses, I'm not worried about comfort there either. So just for a quick mic test, this is the original VZR Model 1 with the original mic, which I've done some physical modifications. I did like a tape mod to increase the sensitivity. And the MacBook has a pretty strong mic preamp capability. So I just wanted to start with this so you can hear what the original mic sounded like. Fast forward nearly a year later, and they improved the mic with this new longer extension and a little bit more sensitivity, again using the original cable. Alright, and now I'm talking to you on the VZR Model 1 Mark II microphone, which I had to reduce the gain just a little bit on the laptop, like just by a few decibels, because the new one is more sensitive. It's very easy to pick up my voice, and I think it sounds great. It has a little bit less warmth than the older microphone systems, which had more of a proximity effect and sounded a little bit thumpier. But this does sound more clear to me, and the biggest reason to consider this upgrade is the fact that it just is more sensitive and easy to drive, because this did struggle with certain things in the past. The other thing I want to point out is this cable had a little bit more hum and crosstalk issues. If you listen to the mic test when I was doing the old one, and any of the times where I wasn't talking, or even in the background while I was talking, you can hear just a faint hum and buzz going straight into the laptop, which is cordless right now. This new cable pretty much got rid of that. If I pause for a moment, pretty much damn near silent. That's awesome. Any microphone that has this long of a boom, if you put it too close to your mouth, it is going to be sensitive to plosives. Even though this has the windscreen, it's no different there, so just be careful not putting it right in front of your firing path for the air coming out of your mouth. But overall, this was a great improvement. Now, on the note of improvements, let's look at frequency response, because to me, this was improved in a lot of areas. It's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect for everybody, and I will be critical in certain things. It's not like I'm glazing over some of the things that normally I wouldn't be as crazy about. So the blue line represents the 2024 edition of the Model 1. This headphone has its own resonant frequency just in that range, at about 180 hertz. So they intentionally tuned the driver to have a reduction in that area, because the headphone is naturally going to amplify that when you wear it. This is just an example of some of the intentional tuning characteristics of it. I'll be honest and say that I'm not a super fan of this much bass at 250 to 400 hertz. It's definitely a little bit thicker sounding. It doesn't get away with it, get away from it fully as I'd expected it to, from a personal preference thing. This is just their intended sound signature. Now, this might look like it has an anemic amount of bass compared to the original. This still has a lot of bass. It's very impactful. And when you play games this really thick, like 250, 300 hertz, it doesn't become as noticeable. But what is noticeable is when you're playing games like the new Battlefield 6, I was playing the beta with this. It was incredible for that. Call of Duty sounds great with explosions, and it's very impactful and very immersive. Maybe you're raining down some democracy in Helldivers 2 now that the Xbox version is finally out. That's been a great game to play, because that's a very cinematic, very immersive gameplay, and having a stronger bass signature is nice for that. Now the green line, I'm going to get rid of the original one. The green line represents the new mid-range of this new system. Talisman or not, frequency changes or not, there is an improved driver on the Mark II. It's not like it's just the Talisman system and tweaked pads. They improved a few things with this headset, and you're seeing part of that here. The lift is very much needed at 1 to 2,000 hertz. The older one was dark, and it was met by a very strong treble spike at higher frequencies, so it kind of snuck up on you. I'm going to get into the subjective side and gaming experience. I'm focusing purely on the measurements. Now, this is a Gros KB006X Pentaclone. There's a lot of different ear simulators out there. This is just how my system hears it. It does not guarantee anything of how you're going to hear it. It might be close in the bass, but the mid-range and treble will vary a lot from listener to listener. This is just how the same rig hears two different headsets. This little treble spike that happens on my rig, just under 6,000 hertz, there's still a little bit of a spike there. Every now and then it sneaks up on you. It can add kind of a sibilant or snappy S to certain vocals. And overall, like breaking glass, metallic sounds, it really wasn't that bad with this. I thought these couple spikes would be a little bit too much, but they tamed this 8K one a bit. And to me, this was the best thing they did with the treble, is pulling this peak down. That alone helped reduce the fatigue issues I had with the original, where I had to do some custom EQ. And to be clear, I was never super crazy about the sound signature of this out of the box. With EQ, I enjoyed it much more. The new Mark II, you could basically plug and play and just get right into immersive gaming and enjoy it quite a bit. It's just not the sound signature that I personally chase for a more neutral or reference listen to for the music side. I think it sounds a little bit dark even now. And that all leads me to the subjective side of audio, which is going to vary quite a bit from personal measurements and objective testing. Because if you just looked at frequency response alone, you're going to form some conclusions of your own right off the bat without even listening to it and trying it yourself. And it's not a sales pitch. I have no affiliate links in the description below for this, and I was not paid to make this video. This is not sponsored in any way. When I first heard the first Model 1, the OG, which technically had the worst tuning of all of them, it was at a CanJam show, a headphone show in Southern California. It's called CanJam. I'll put a link in the description below because it's actually coming up, and I will be there. But there's a big headphone show that showcases tons of headphones and IEMs, not headsets, except for these guys. These guys were brave enough to bring an analog closed-back gaming headset to a headphone show, and they smartly removed this little microphone so people wouldn't prejudge the headset. It was playing a demo of Battlefront, and it was using the Monoprice Monolith Liquid Gold amp. I believe that's what it's called. And that demo blew me away. I had never had so much fun just watching a Battlefront demo play on a TV. And that was my first experience with it. And I was like, guys, I have to review this. That's what started this whole coverage of this particular headset, because of that experience. And then if you look at the frequency response, you would have been like, it's too dark, way too much bass. It was a ton of fun in that game demo. Now that sound signature is not going to work for everything. This isn't like the type of sound signature I would have listened to listen to James Blake or, classical music. It's very bass forward and very dark with a couple sharp treble spikes. So it's not as conducive to me to a wide variety of listening to music. And I'm not going to pretend that the new model is magically better across the board, because while it's a big improvement overall, it's not exactly where I would prefer to have a neutral sound that maybe some people are looking for if you can only have one or two audio products, because you deserve to have a neutral sound. What this does that's kind of special is it's intentionally coloring the sound in a way to make things more immersive, more weighty, like heavy, and impactful. And on immersive gaming, it's just such a blast to listen to. And when I played Battlefield 6, this was a riot. Battlefield 6 has explosions everywhere. It's like PTSD-inducing levels of action, and I loved it. And Helldivers 2 came out on Xbox, and even though I've had Helldivers for a couple years, kind of went on, or maybe a year and a half, it's all a blur now, kind of went on hiatus for playing for a while because we've just been playing a lot of Call of Duty. My buddy's got it on Xbox, so naturally I still have my PS5 copy. We started playing that again recently, and this has been a riot on that. I absolutely love what this does for the sound. And because they reduced that spike just a little bit on the treble, I wasn't surprised by something painful that caused me to turn it down. So these are huge improvements. And because the microphone is so sensitive and easy to drive, I didn't have to worry about talking either. The cable doesn't tangle as much. So I had all these quality of life improvements. I still don't think this is the sound signature I would lean in towards for like racing games. I don't really know of a particular situation. So I guess if you're chasing a lighter sound presentation, if you play Valorant, Valorant is a little bit more mid-bass focused, but like in a very tight, clean way for where you want to hear footstep cues. And Apex is kind of the same way. These are going to make those games sound a little bit heavier and more dynamic and suspenseful, but it won't necessarily do you any favors on tracking footsteps specifically because of that. Thankfully, EQ exists. You can roll off even more bass and really hyper-focus on it. But the imaging side of these are incredible. That hasn't changed. It's very easy to pinpoint stuff. I am super competitive in Call of Duty because of that, and spatial cues are very easy. The one thing I noticed is I've been playing with different audio products a lot. I've actually been testing a lot of IEMs for gaming lately, and it took a bit to get used to the verticality of these, which I've almost never commented on because this is a left and right driver. How do you make it so a sound sounds up here and down here? Well, 99.9% of that is going to come from the game engine and how it tries to simulate it, and then your headphones try to faithfully reproduce what the game engine is trying to tell you to do. These imaged so vastly, but still being very precise, that I had some trouble judging how close someone was when they were above me because it sounded like they were right there. And this is situations where someone's parachuting by me and I'm trying to track. I always looked too close to where I thought they were, and when in fact they were actually a little bit further away. So that was just some of the adjustments I had to get used to. I just wanted to not ignore some of the things I experienced. It was an interesting shift, but still had fun playing it, and I think the bass was nice. When it comes to music, I'm just going to be blunt. You know, you are paying for sound quality, you're paying for the microphone. I think some of this stuff really is warranted on the immersive and spatial audio side of things, but a closeback that's tuned this way isn't going to be for everybody's cup of tea when it comes to music listening, because voices are definitely colored. It's nice and relaxing. I think the lift they did was nice. I would have preferred a little bit more, but it definitely colors certain voices, and they just sound a little bit thicker and a little heavier. And because the mid-range is relaxed, it decays quicker. So voices, as they trail off with certain tones, you don't hear as many like following tones of their voice or even instruments. It stops just a little bit faster because it's darker and warmer. So hopefully I explained that well. Like I said, I'm not trying to make excuses for the quality of this video. I'm still a little bit foggy, and I'm doing my best. The good thing is I've had 2 solid weeks of playing with some stuff while I've been kind of out of commission, so the games have been kind of therapeutic for me. So it was a good timing to be able to cover a few audio products, and the Model 1's kind of been there for that. And honestly, because of some of the headaches and stuff I've been getting, that comfort, breathability, all that, it really kind of timed it well for me to really experience what these things can do. With that being said, that brings this video to a close, and I hope you found the information you were looking for. I tried conveying, I guess, the changes from this one in case you already had a Model 1, but also what this does in its own unique way. There really aren't any analog, especially analog, gaming headsets that do what the VZR Model 1 does. A big part of what you're paying for is build quality and comfort. That is not cheap to build this kind of headphone. So I wouldn't compare it solely to a sub $200 headphone or headset on the value side of things, because if you're willing to accept a gratuitous use of plastic and lightweight, well, the Sennheiser/Drop PC38X is still an exceptional value. I love that headset. That's not the headset I'm chasing if I want really deep, impactful, immersive bass. It's kind of like a guilty pleasure that I think not everyone wants to admit they love sometimes when it comes to gaming. And this just does that part right while also being comfortable and really well made. So it's going to last a long time. And I'm really pleased to see the microphone improvements and the cable being addressed to be a more versatile, easy to live with cable every single day. This is definitely worthy of the Mark II moniker. It's not just like a Model 1.5, if you will. So pretty happy with it. It's not going to be for everybody. If you're chasing neutrality, I think there are better options out there for less money. If you just want a more normal, natural presentation. This is colored in its own very intentional, unapologetic way, and some people are going to love it for that. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching and making it to the end of this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I have a lot of stuff I have to catch up on, and I'd love to see you then. So take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.